Oh, speaking of Tank, this is what I'm saying. Like, I have to get to the next topic because people are getting on my nerves. I'm so baffed, bro.
Yeah.
Americans are so obsessed with Tank Davis, bro. Because even where Tank shouldn't be relevant, he is now relevant. After Inoue beat Lewis Neri, which is a great performance by Inoue, he did get dropped in the first round. I can't remember. He got dropped, but then got up and won by stoppage. Good performance. Obviously, people are saying who should Inoue fight next. People are saying Tank. I'm like, bro, that's 4 weight classes above. And people are justifying it. Inoue is not pound for pound number 1 until he fights Tank. How does that make sense? This is world-class minds in boxing, or supposed to be world-class minds in boxing. Many people of you have said it. I've seen Andre Rose say it, and I've seen Virgil Hunter say it. That's 2 credible boxing coaches, and it's not even just them. Just people are just saying that he can't be pound for pound number 1 until he sees Tank, he's at 135, you're at 122. That's 4 weight classes.
This is an unpopular... What I'm going to say is going to be an unpopular opinion, but you've got to follow my logic here. I wonder how much we've gone from the dark... In the last 10, 15 years, we've gone from the dark ages of boring, horrible boxing with the Klitschko era up to what is now we're living in sort of a golden age of boxing with a lot of undisputed champions. Up until recently, a lot of talented fighters, a lot of kind of borderline Hall of Fame fighters all living at the same time. And the fans are now spoiled because we want to see, we'll talk about it in a bit because we've got other things to talk about, but the same thing with Canelo versus Crawford. They just want to see these names that are all on the top 10 pound for pound list all fight each other, and it doesn't make any sense. Do you know what I'm saying? That's like trying to get Yard to fight AJ because they're, but do you know what I mean? Yard's a bad example because he's not on the pound for pound list. That's trying to get Bivol to fight AJ, which is not super ridiculous, but to me it's still ridiculous. He's gonna lose. He's way better than AJ, but 99% he's gonna lose. That doesn't, the point of boxing, and the reason we're against some of these fights is because, well, for me anyway, you're picking fights that don't tell us anything. That doesn't tell us anything. If Inoue fights Tank and Tank knocks him out, what does that tell us?
Just tells us that Tank was bigger.
Tank is much, much, much bigger and much, much, much heavier. And when I say much, people are there's gonna be fat ass 250 pound men typing on the keyboard saying, oh, it's not that much, it's 15 pounds, it's however many pounds. But in world level boxing, that's a lot of weight. That's a lot. So what are you talking about? Do you mean Inoue could still be pound for pound a better boxer than Tank and lose to Tank?
Literally. We've seen it so many times, bro. Like, we've seen it literally so many times. And for me, the argument of whether Tank fighting Inoue, that's pointless. The argument of whether Inoue is pound for pound number 1.
Tank has unfinished food at his own weight class.
Multiple unfinished food.
He's got unfinished food at his own weight class. You should not. It's the same thing that we say about Canelo. We'll go into Canelo Crawford because that's the next topic and that's what we want to talk about now. But the same thing, Canelo has too many fights that he hasn't cleared off at his own weight class while he's holding all the belts hostage at his own weight class to go and fight Crawford. Is he not going to vacate these belts? How are you fighting all these fights over here and over there? Yeah, it's interesting. Of course it's interesting. Do you mean it's an interesting fight? It's an interesting spectacle. But that doesn't tell us anything about the fight.
No, it doesn't. Not at all. But Tank, Inoue being pound for pound number 1, I think he's got a very good claim. I still think people are not putting Usyk's name there. For what reason, I don't know. He's got a big fight against Fury next week, which we'll get into. And if he wins that fight, he'll definitely be a man. I think
anticipation plays a lot in that. I think people are scared to put him number 1 in case he gets shown up against Fury. Do you know what I'm saying? Because, I guess you could make the argument Inoue's cleared out his division. He's cleared out 2 divisions, actually. 2 divisions. He's cleared out 2 divisions. Usyk's cleared out 1 division and is close to clearing out a 2nd division, and then that division is the most challenging.
What I would say is, like, this is no strike against Inoue, so please do not. I'm a massive Inoue fan, but a lot of the work at 122 that he just would become undisputed at had already been dealt with by Fulton before. You know what I'm saying? Like, Fulton had already collected 2 or 3 of those belts from before, and you beat Fulton. You know what I'm saying? Whereas winning against each champion one by one is a much harder accomplishment.
The only reason I would challenge that is because if him and Fulton had a classic and he edged it on a split decision, I would agree with you. But he battered Fulton. So that is even more impressive that Fulton's beat these other champions and that he's made this guy look like not like an amateur.
No, he
made him look like an
battered
amateur.
him.
Like
He
he
battered
battered
him.
him. So I think that's why, like, because you could say the same thing about Crawford versus Spence.
Spence picked up all the belts and then
Spence picked up all the belts and then Crawford battered him. So
but
I
then
think when it's a battering like that,
is Inoue better than Crawford?
But listen, whichever way you slice it, Inoue, Crawford, and Usyk have to be in the top 3. They have to be. And then whatever you decide, the order, we can stand there and make an argument. If I had to choose, my argument for Usyk is size. He's fighting people that are biologically not just bigger than him, but his opponents have the most physical variety in terms of height, dimensions, styles. That is the most diversity. My argument for Crawford is that they have the most technical diversity.
I was going to say that because the reason I was just
Inoue for me would probably come 3 just because of his size. Nothing against him. There's nothing he can do.
Here's the thing with with Crawford, where I just piggybacking on your point. If there was a fighter that I wanted to fight for my life, I'm picking Crawford.
Yeah.
Like, that's if based on ability and technical ability, like, Crawford ain't getting dropped by Lewis Neri. No disrespect to Lewis Neri. He's a good fighter, but Lewis Neri isn't an A-level fighter. Crawford ain't getting, even though Crawford's been dropped before, and I know people are going to say that, but if someone's fighting for my life, I want Crawford to fight for my life, bro. That's it. Inoue, though, based on the fact that he's fought at multiple weight classes and he's won the most belts out of the 3, you can give him a claim to be number 1. Usyk, because in my opinion, agreed with what you just said, the variety, but also I felt like
he's fighting people from anywhere that are 5'10" to 6'5".
Literally, because obviously you're talking about cruiserweight as well, innit? So obviously with Usyk, he's fought so many world champions, so many top level fighters, much higher level than what I think Inoue's fought, in my opinion.
My argument for Crawford is that what you do have at heavyweight, although they're a lot bigger, what you have at heavyweight is some guys that will come into the ring, like, for example, a Derek Chisora, who really can't do anything technically apart from one bang and rough you up. Do you know what I'm saying? Whereas Crawford is fighting, they're not as big, but he's fighting solid technicians all the way through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Similar to like an early Canelo or a Floyd, he's fighting solid technicians all the way through. Really good level fighters.
Trust me.
And then some of them can bang, some of them can't, but
it's more about ability.
They're tough, long fights every single time. Do you know what I mean? And that's why it was such a surprise to see him batter Spence the way that he did.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas again, with Usyk, he's going into some fights. Yes, Derek Chisora is much bigger than him, but he has massive technical advantage
over pretty much anyone.
So they're the 2 reasons: the technical diversity of Crawford's resume, and then the physical diversity of Usyk's resume. And I think based on that, Inoue comes number 3 because his fighters are a lot closer together in both those respects.
And in terms of ability as well, I think
that's what I mean.
You think about maybe Fulton, Nonito Donaire, and maybe Neri. Those are probably the...
Neri's still a level below.
He's level below. No, Fulton and Nonito Donaire are probably the 2 best fighters on his resume, which, no disrespect, Fulton's a top fighter.
Great fighters.
Nonito Donaire's a top fighter, but when you think about Crawford and Usyk and who they've fought and who they've beat, I just think they've beaten a higher level. So.
Especially and then looking at the level of the fighters, the level of the fighters that they've beat, the fighters that they had previously beaten.
Facts,
Do you know what I'm saying? So Usyk hasn't obviously fought a Klitschko, but he's beat AJ twice, who beat Klitschko. Do you know what I'm saying? So when you look at that,
out the whole division, he's also. I mean, I think Usyk's resume speaks for itself. But you're 100% right.
Yeah, so that's it for me. So for me, it's got to be. I don't care if it's Usyk or Crawford, number 1, number 2.
We will see next week because I think. But what I will say is though,
but can one loss drop someone out?
Well, we'll get to that. I was gonna say a question though. All 3 of those are definitely Hall of Famers. Those 3 are 100% Hall of Famers. Usyk, Inoue, and Crawford are all Hall of Famers.
Yeah.